breeze of dawn, if I settle by the sea, I know your hand is always there to guide me. You are there, you are there, you are there, you are there. Where can I go? Where can I go from your presence? Trouble is in my way, you're already there. You will not go. You will not go from my presence. For a word of mine is said, if in the depths I lay my head, in the shadow of your wings you're there to hide me. You are there. 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 I've got my faith in the Lord, and it's working in me. I've got my faith in the Lord, and it's showing in me. I've got my faith in the Lord, and it's plain to see. I've got my faith in the Lord. I'm so glad I've got my faith in the Lord. I've got the love of the Lord. I've got the love of the Lord, and it's working in me. I've got the love of the Lord, and it's showing in me. I've got the love of the Lord, and it's plain to see. I've got the love of the Lord. I'm so glad I've got the love of the Lord. I've got the joy of the Lord. I've got the joy of the Lord, and it's working in me. I've got the joy of the Lord, and it's showing in me. I've got the joy of the Lord, and it's plain to see. I've got the joy of the Lord. I'm so glad I've got the joy of the Lord. I've got the joy of the Lord. I've got the joy of the Lord, and it's working in me. I've got the joy of the Lord, and it's showing in me. I've got the joy of the Lord, and it's plain to see. I've got the joy of the Lord. I'm so glad I've got the joy of the Lord. I've got my faith in the Lord. I've got my faith in the Lord, and it's working in me. I've got my faith in the Lord, and it's showing in me. I've got my faith in the Lord, and it's plain to see. I've got my faith in the Lord. I'm so glad I've got my faith in the Lord. I've got the love of the Lord. I've got the love of the Lord, and it's working in me. I've got the love of the Lord, and it's showing in me. I've got the love of the Lord, and it's plain to see. I've got the love of the Lord. I'm so glad I've got the love of the Lord. I've got the joy of the Lord. I've got the joy of the Lord, and it's working in me. I've got the joy of the Lord, and it's showing in me. I've got the joy of the Lord, and it's plain to see. I've got the joy of the Lord. I'm so glad I've got the joy of the Lord. I've got the joy of the Lord. I've got the joy of the joy. I've got the joy of the joy. I've got the joy. I've got the joy. I've got the joy of the joy of the Lord. I've got the joy of the Lord.
Christ for the world we sing, the world to Christ we bring, with loving zeal the poor redeemed at countless cost from dark despair.
Hello, welcome to our Bible study. My name is Clint McElroy, and today we'll be in 2 Samuel chapter 3. We will be meeting today at 10 a.m., so please join us if you can. We will have masks available at the door for anyone who needs one. If you're sick in any way, please don't come to the auditorium, but instead stay home and enjoy the streaming service. We'll also meet at 9 a.m. for classes, so please join us for those. If you care to, you can join us in the auditorium to watch this class on the large screen there. We have these English Standard Version Bibles from the World Bible School available for those who'd like to have one. If you'd care to have one, please notify our church office and we'll make arrangements to get you one. Our sick list is quite long, so please refer to our bulletin for more information. We do want to thank God for the answered prayers in regards to Arvis's surgery. My father-in-law is back at home now, my understanding, and he's doing well. Paula had a good result from her surgery, so we're happy to hear that news. We want to remember that there are those who still have COVID-19 that we need to keep in our prayers, but we've heard that Emma and her family are recovered, and they've had 2 negative tests at this point, and my last contact with Alan indicates that he is recovered from his COVID as well. So there's good news all around. Also, keep in your prayers Janice Lee, who is Stephanie Brazil's mother, and also Ruth Bailey, an in-law of Scott Brazil's sister. And also keep April in your prayers as she's scheduled to have surgery in December, I think December 2nd. As is our custom, we want to remember the story of the 2 men on the road to Emmaus who were joined by a third man on the way. When they got to their destination and he left their party, they realized that there had been a burning in their hearts when he was with them. They had come to understand that the man was Jesus after the resurrection. It's that burning that they had in their hearts that we hope to kindle in our own hearts as we draw closer to the Lord through a study of His Word. We also come to the Word to find out what we must do to be holy. As we're admonished from Leviticus chapter 19, be holy for the Lord our God is holy. And finally, we want to remember the story of Rehoboam, Jeroboam, and the prophet that came to Jeroboam. Foremost among those stories, I call out the story of the prophet because it ends in such a strange and counterintuitive way. The prophet was held accountable because he believed a lie. I'm not here to bring you an untruth or falsehood in any way, but you should not consider anything I say to be true on its own merit. You should consider the things I say in light of the Word. Go to the Word, and if you find that I've said anything that's not consistent with the Word, believe the Word. And I hope you will come to me and let me know the disparity there so that we can go to the Word together and find the truth. We'll be studying out of 2 Samuel chapter 3 this week. We'll start a few verses in as we went over some of the early verses last week to get some mispronunciations out of the way early. So join me now. I hope you find a word of encouragement in today's study. 2 Samuel chapter 3 from the English Standard Version, starting in verse 6. While there was a war between the house of Saul and the house of David, Abner was making himself strong in the house of Saul. Now Saul had a concubine whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah. And Ishbosheth said to Abner, "Why have you gone in to my father's concubine?" Then Abner was very angry over the words of Ishbosheth and said, "Am I a dog's head of Judah? To this day I keep showing steadfast love to the house of Saul your father, to his brothers and to his friends, and have not given you into the hand of David. And yet you charge me today with a fault concerning a woman? God do so to Abner and more also, if I do not accomplish for David what the Lord has sworn to him, to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul and set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah, from Dan to Beersheba." And Ishbosheth could not answer Abner another word because he feared him. Verse 12. And Abner sent messengers to David on his behalf, saying, "To whom does the land belong? Make your covenant with me, and behold, my hand shall be with you to bring over all Israel to you." And he said, "Good, I will make a covenant with you, but one thing I require of you. That is, you shall not see my face unless you first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when you come to see my face." Then David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, "Give me my wife Michal for whom I paid the bridal price of 100 foreskins of the Philistines. Verse 15. And Ishbosheth sent and took her from her husband Paltiel the son of Laish. But her husband went with her, weeping after her all the way to Bahurim. Then Abner said to him, Go, return. And he returned. Verse 17. And Abner conferred with the elders of Israel, saying, For some time past you have been seeking David as king over you. Now then bring it about, for the Lord has promised David, saying, By the hand of my servant David I will save my people Israel from the hand of the Philistines, and from the hand of all their enemies. Verse 19. Abner also spoke to Benjamin, and then Abner went to tell David at Hebron all that Israel and the whole house of Benjamin thought good to do. Verse 20. When Abner came with 20 men to David at Hebron, David made a feast for Abner and the men who were with him. And Abner said to David, I will arise and go and will gather all Israel to my lord the king, that they may make a covenant with you, and that you may reign over all that your heart desires. So David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. Verse 22. Just then the servants of David arrived with Joab from a raid, bringing much spoil with them. But Abner was not with David at Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he had gone in peace. When Joab and all the army that was with him came, it was told Joab, Abner the son of Ner came to the king, and he has let him go, and he has gone in peace. Verse 24. Then Joab went to the king and said, What have you done? Behold, Abner came to you. Why is it that you have sent him away so that he is gone? You know that Abner the son of Ner came to deceive you, and to know your going out and your coming in, and to know all that you are doing. Verse 26. When Joab came out from David's presence, he sent messengers after Abner, and they brought him back from the cistern of Sirah. But David did not know about it. And when Abner returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside into the midst of the gate to speak with him privately, and there he struck him in the stomach, so that he died, for the blood of Ashiel his brother. Afterward, when David heard of it, he said, I and my kingdom are forever guiltless before the Lord for the blood of Abner the son of Ner. May it fall upon the head of Joab and all his father's house, and may the house of Joab never be without one who has a discharge, or who is leprous, or who holds a spindle, or who falls by the sword, or who lacks bread. So Joab and Abishai his brother killed Abner, because he had put their brother Asahel to death in the battle at Gibeon. Verse 31. Then David said to Joab and to all the people who were with him, Tear your clothes and put on sackcloth and mourn before Abner. And King David followed the bier. They buried Abner at Hebron, and the king lifted up his voice and wept at the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. And the king lamented before Abner, saying, Should Abner die as a fool dies? Your hands were not bound, your feet were not fettered. As one falls before the wicked, you have fallen. And all the people wept again over him. Verse 35. Then all the people came to persuade David to eat bread while it was yet day. But David swore, saying, God do so to me, and more also, if I taste bread or anything else, till the sun goes down. And all the people took notice of it, and it pleased them, as everything that the king did pleased all the people. Verse 37. So all the people and all Israel understood that day that it had not been the king's will to put to death Abner the son of Ner. And the king said to his servants, Do you not know that a prince and a great man has fallen this day in Israel? And I was gentle today, though anointed king. These men, the sons of Zeruiah, are more severe than I. The Lord repay the evildoer according to his wickedness. Okay, so last week we studied how Ishbosheth had been made king of Israel by Abner, the son of Ner, the commander of Saul's army, who was also Saul's uncle. We have this short breakdown of the time frames. It says that Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old in verse 10 when he began to reign over Israel, and he reigned for 2 years. But the house of Judah followed David. And that time that David was king at Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. So there's a little disparity there, and I have yet to figure out how exactly that disparity should be corrected. It goes on in the next section to describe the battle of Gibeon. There, Abner of Israel meets with Joab of Judah. They sit down on opposite ends of this pool at Gibeon. They decide to have some young men stand before them and fight each other on their behalf. So 12 from Israel arose, and 12 from Judah arose. Specifically, the 12 that arose from Israel were from Benjamin. In verse 16, it says that each of these men caught his opponent by the head and immediately thrust his sword into his opponent's side, so that all of them fell down. So all 24 men fell down. And the place was called Helkath-Azurim, which means field of sword edges. And then the battle ensued, because that wasn't going to be sufficient. So Abner ended up being routed by the house of David. So the three sons of Zeruiah were there that day, according to verse 18, Joab, Abishai, and Aziel. And Aziel was swift of foot, and he chased after Abner directly. And I take it that Aziel was a younger man who was swift as a gazelle, while Abner was an older man who, while he gave a pretty good run, he must have been quite old. I mean, he's Saul's uncle, and Ishbosheth is 40 years old, so it's possible that he was younger than Saul's offspring, but I can't reconcile that in my head. In my mind, he was at least as old as Saul, which again, in my mind, puts him about 60 years old if Ishbosheth is 40. So here he is running from this young man. He turns and recognizes that it's Aziel, and he says, Aziel, turn to the left or right, take one of these other men for your spoil. Don't come after me. I don't want to kill you, because if I kill you, how can I then face Joab, knowing that I've killed you, his brother? But Aziel wouldn't turn from chasing after Abner, so Abner struck him with the butt of his spear. Again, Abner's in front. I'm seeing this in my mind's eye, and Aziel's behind, so he has the butt of his spear and jabs it back through Aziel's belly, and it comes out his back and kills him instantly. And all who came to the place where Aziel had fallen stood still, it says in verse 23. Joab and Abishai pursue Abner, and they pursue him and all the Benjamin that's left to the hill of Ammah, which is before Giah. I think I was saying Gila last week, but it's Giah. I was putting in an L where there is none, which is on the way of the wilderness of Gibeon. The people of Benjamin took the high ground, and they stood their ground, and they called out to Joab and says, Shall the sword devour forever? Do you not know that this will end bitterly? How long will it be until you tell your people to turn from this pursuit of their brothers? Calling on that brotherly love that he wouldn't show in showing support for David and a unified Israel. But now he calls on this brotherly love, this brotherly consideration as he faces these men who are hot on his tail. Joab said in verse 27, As God lives, if you had not spoken, surely the men would not have given up their pursuit of their brothers until the morning. So in verse 28, Joab blows the trumpet, and the men stopped their pursuit and returned. It says in verse 29, Abner and his men went all night through the Arabah to return, crossing the Jordan, and came to Mahanaim that morning. Joab returned from his pursuit of Abner. When they gathered their men together, they had lost 19 men, including those who had fallen initially. So of those men that passed after the fighting began at large, only 7 additional men, not including Aziel, had fallen from the house of David. But 360 of Abner's men had fallen. 360 specifically of the house of Benjamin. So it says in verse 32, they took up Aziel and buried him in the tomb of his father, which was at Bethlehem. Joab and his men marched all night, and as day broke, they were at Hebron. Going on into the next chapter, there was a long war between the house of Saul and the house of David. David grew stronger and stronger, and Saul's house grew weaker and weaker. It describes the sons who were born to him while he was at Hebron, these 6 sons whose names I will not attempt to say again. I will correct my spelling from last week. It's not Ammon, it's Amnon, who was the son of Ahinoam of Jezreel. I may have mispronounced the rest, but we'll just leave that for the record. In verse 6, today's reading, while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, Abner was making himself strong in the house of Saul. So as the kingdom of Israel grew weaker before the house of David and Judah, Abner was making himself stronger in the house of Saul. So effectively, Abner was using Ishbosheth as a puppet and trying to run Israel himself. He had taken upon himself to go into the concubine of Saul, whose name was Rizpah. Apparently, it's not specifically said, even though it's inferred here in the actions of Ishbosheth. And Ishbosheth challenges Abner about having done that in verse 7. Abner responds, is very angry, and says, "Am I a dog's head of Judah? To this day I have kept showing steadfast love to the house of Saul your father, to his brothers and to his friends, and have not given you into the hand of David. Yet you charge me today with a fault concerning a woman, as if it was beneath him to be charged with something that had to do with his conduct toward a woman. God do so to Abner and more also if I do not accomplish for David what the Lord has sworn to him, to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul and set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah from Dan to Beersheba." So he is just now telling Ishbosheth, I'm going to put you in your place and I'm going to give to David what God has promised David, and I will answer to David and not to you, Ishbosheth. In verse 11, Ishbosheth could not answer Abner another word because he feared him. So Ishbosheth's presence was not fearful to Abner, but Abner's presence was fearful to Ishbosheth. Abner must have been quite a man to be in the physical presence of. Verse 12 continues, at that point, Abner sends messengers to David on his behalf, saying, "To whom does this land belong? Make your covenant with me, and behold, my hand shall be with you, and bring all of Israel over to you." I'm paraphrasing. David responds in verse 13, "Good, I will make a covenant with you, but one thing I require, I want to have Michal, my wife, Saul's daughter, back before you see my face." Then David sends messengers to Ishbosheth directly, saying, "Give me my wife, Michal, for whom I paid the bridal price of 100 foreskins of the Philistines." If you remember, Saul had sent David on a fool's errand to collect these trophies from the Philistines, and expecting that David would be killed in doing so, but instead David returned, having killed more than the number of Philistines necessary to make this collection. So Ishbosheth sent and took Michal away from her current husband, Paltiel, the son of Laish, and he went with her, weeping after her, until they got to Bahurim, where Abner turned to him and said, "Go, return." And apparently, when Abner spoke, people listened. Verse 17 says that Abner conferred with the elders of Israel, saying, "For some time you've been seeking to have David as king over you." So Israel apparently was not happy with the situation with the house of Saul and Benjamin ruling over all of Israel. And they had been seeking to make arrangements to have David lead all of Israel. Abner then recognizes that the Lord had made this promise to David, saying, "By the hand of my servant David, I will save my people Israel from the hand of the Philistines and from the hand of all their enemies." So then Abner spoke to the house of Benjamin also. They must have been quite powerful at this point. And Abner went to tell David what he'd found out from the house leaders of Israel and Benjamin. When Abner comes to David at Hebron, David is apparently there alone. And David makes a feast for Abner and welcomes the men that had come with Abner. They sit down and have their feast. And then Abner gets up and says, "I'll go and gather all of Israel to my lord the king, and I will make a covenant with you, and you may reign over all of Israel and all that your heart desires." David sends Abner away, and he went in peace. As he had left, just moments after he left apparently, the servants of David arrived with Joab from a raid, bringing much spoil with them. But Abner was no longer there in Hebron, because David had just sent him away. And when Joab came, some told him that Abner had been there with the king, and that the king had not held him, but had sent him away in peace. Joab was angry about this, I'm guessing, and he goes into the king and says, "What have you done?" Abner came to you? Why is it that you have sent him away, so that he is gone? You know that Abner the son of Ner came to deceive you, and to know you're going out and you're coming in, and to know all that you are doing. So he figured that Abner had come to spy on David. Now, I don't think that's what he really thought. I think that's what he wanted David to believe he thought. He was angry because he had lost out on a chance to kill Abner. It was his intention to kill Abner. That's my personal belief on that point. Then he leaves the king's presence, and as he goes outside, he sends messengers after Abner. Joab does, and they go out and bring him back from the cistern at Sirah, because he was not that far away. But David did not know that they had done this. Verse 27, Abner returns to Hebron. Joab takes him aside as if to speak to him privately, and there he strikes him in the stomach so that he dies, for the blood of Azazel his brother. So this was an action that Joab felt he could take as the avenger of blood. I'm not sure that the rule of the avenger of blood was intended to be used in the event of a death that was at the hand of someone in battle, but Joab didn't seem to care about that. All he wanted was vengeance, and he took his vengeance there that day. Afterward, when David heard about it, he said, I and my kingdom are forever guiltless before the Lord for the blood of Abner the son of Ner. May it fall upon the head of Joab and upon all his father's house, and may the house of Joab never be without one who has a discharge, or who is leprous, or who holds a spindle. I don't know what holding a spindle means. Or who falls by the sword, or who lacks bread. Those are pretty awful things altogether, so I imagine holding a spindle is also a terrible thing. So Joab and Abishai, his brother, killed Abner, it says in verse 30, because he had put their brother Azazel to death in the battle at Gibeon. It goes on in verse 31, David said to Joab and all the people who were with him, tear your clothes and put on sackcloth and mourn before Abner. David followed the bier, and as they buried Abner there at Hebron, the king lifted up his voice and wept at the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. And the king lamented this lament, saying, should Abner die as a fool dies, your hands were not bound, your feet were not fettered, as one falls before the wicked you have fallen. And all the people wept over him. So I would think that means that he was taken off guard. He was not captured and killed. He wasn't one who died in battle. He was taken off guard and killed as if he was being mugged on the street, is the way I take that. Verse 35 continues, then all the people came to persuade David to eat bread while it was yet day. Apparently David had not eaten. David answered, God do so to me, and more also, if I taste bread or anything else, till the sun goes down. So all the people took notice of that, and it pleased them, as everything that the king did pleased all the people, it said in verse 36. In verse 37, it says that all the people understood that day that it was not the king's will that Abner be put to death. The king says to his servants, do you not know that a prince and a great man has fallen this day in Israel? And I was gentle today, though anointed king. These men, the sons of Zeruiah, are more severe than I. The Lord repay the evildoer according to his wickedness. So more curses there from David against Joab and his family for what they had done, and the implications of that to the house of Judah and David's kingdom. He did not want people to think that he had called for this to happen. He had great respect for Abner, as he had had for Saul and Jonathan and the rest of the house of Saul. He loved Saul and he loved Jonathan, and that is not to be overlooked in reading through this passage. David did not have animosity toward Israel because of their separation. He did not look on Israel with hate. He wanted them to be united as one kingdom, as one people, according to the Lord's will. And he was waiting on the Lord to do that. I don't think this is any indication that there was a terrible fight going on constantly between Judah and Israel. This would indicate to me that David defended himself in Judah from Israel's attacks, but he would never go after Israel. And that's probably why Israel kept weakening themselves. In an offense against a defensive position, it's very easy to waste resources. And I would imagine that's what was going on. Israel was becoming poorer and poorer in their attacks on Judah, And Judah was becoming stronger and stronger as a result. A terrible thing to foster hate between a family of people, a people who should be united. Still a good message today as it was last week. Still a good message to look at the implications of hate in the heart of men towards someone who had just done what he had to do to survive in a battle. That's a different thing. That's a different measure of behavior in those circumstances. It was not appropriate in my mind that Joab and Abishai pursue Abner for this death. It was not inappropriate for Asahel to pursue Abner either. That was an appropriate thing to do in battle. But Asahel died a legitimate death in battle because he was fighting with someone who was going to kill him if he didn't kill him first. That's what happens in fights. Those are the rules of engagement. You engage to find out who the victor is. And when a draw is called on, then it needs to be a draw. The fighting needs to cease. Joab and Abishai did not cease their fight. In their hearts, anyway. Lessons to be learned there. I've posted a reading of Psalms chapter 119. After that admonition from Scott last week in his sermon, I felt compelled to post a reading there. So I hope you will take advantage of that and follow through with some of what Scott had said we should do with Psalms 119 and encourage yourself with that material as you see fit. I hope you will join us today at 10 a.m. if you can for worship service. If you're sick in any way, please don't come to the auditorium, but instead stay home and enjoy the streaming service. God bless and have a great week.
The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. Therefore I will hope in him.
My soul magnifies the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. My soul magnifies the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God. My soul magnifies the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. My soul magnifies the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God. My soul magnifies the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. My soul magnifies the Lord. My spirit will rejoice in God. My soul magnifies the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. My soul magnifies the Lord. My spirit will rejoice in My spirit rejoices in God.
I will call upon the Lord.
I will call upon the Lord.
Who is worthy to be
Who
praised?
is worthy to be
So
praised?
shall I be saved from
Shall
my
I be
enemies.
saved from my enemies?
The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. Jesus Christ, He died for me.
Jesus Christ, He died for me.
And He took away my
And He
sin.
took away my sin.
I will live with Him for eternity.
I know the Lord liveth,
And blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted.
I know the Lord liveth,
And blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted.
I know the Lord liveth,
And blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. I will call upon the Lord.
I will call upon the Lord.
As the deer pants for the water, so my soul longs after you. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. You're my friend, and you are my brother, even though you are a king. I love you more than any other, so much more than anything. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. I want you more than gold or silver, only you can satisfy. You alone are the real joy giver, and the apple of my eye. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you